Marvin Devine. I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating. Thanks to all the rumors you be claiming, it's cool, I'm done with you, so they can throw you a celebration. You gon' hate it when you see me with somebody living better. I'm trying to tell you that me just doing me gon' have you jealous.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to the program. It's Chris live in central Pennsylvania with the latest in our series of interviews with the 59ers, the original refugees who came over. We're not exclusively interviewing them. If anyone who's come subsequent to that would like to be interviewed and like to talk about their experiences, we're happy to do that. My guest today is Errol Lanngton, and Errol is probably known to many of you. He's, I think CBS covered a story on him. He's also been covered in South African press. He's one of two of the 59ers who have actually been in the press a couple of times at least, Charles Kleinhaus being one of the others. So we're going to talk today mostly about adjusting to America and what it's like. This is not really to talk about, emails and, interviews and all that stuff, folks. We've covered that 8 million times and 60,000 ways to Sunday. So you can go watch previous interviews if you're looking for that. We're focused on these interviews about what life's like, maybe comparing and contrast with life in South Africa and coming over here. We ask a few questions about where people are from, if they want to disclose that and that sort of thing. But with that in mind, let me say hello to my guest, Errol. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Colonel. Hanbaya goed, dankie.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear it's going well. So you've done a few interviews, and I think that was it CBS that came down to your town and walked around with you? I think it was CBS recently.
No, I didn't meet with CBS. Only people I met with directly was New York Times, and then Annika from
Oh, that's right.
ENCA.
Yeah, it was ENCA. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm saying CBS. Yeah, it was ENCA. It was Annika. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So a lot of people, some people were critical of that. Others, here's my take on that interview, if you don't mind me saying this. I thought that the interview was handled pretty fairly. You got a chance to tell your views, your side of what was happening, what life was like. There was a little bit about the interview I had issues with, and I called that out, which had nothing to do with you. She decides to focus on Alabama, the most racist state in America, nonsense like that. I could do the same thing. I'm here in Cape Town, the birthplace of apartheid. I don't do that. That's just silly. Where you're at is not where it was 50 years ago. But I thought the interview was pretty fair. I don't know, from your perspective, did you think you got a fair treatment in that interview?
Yeah, look, it was a really interesting interview. They were more than fair. Annika and then her producer, Karen, were there with me. Everything they asked is they put out as I answered it. There was no kind of cut and clip and, creative editing done. So I was really grateful of that. And very accommodating, very friendly. The only comment I have on the interview is where we're sitting in the hotel room. The camera is focused on me for part of the interview. Every time it switched back to her, that was filmed after the fact.
Yeah.
So the question she asked in the interview and the questions she asked in the filming after the fact were slightly different. I think partly just because of timing, but the wording was slightly different from what I experienced. Not in a bad way, but there was a little bit of narrative driven there. And I think that was part of the things that you complained about, that you mentioned in your video. But other than that, I mean, it was just I felt like I was treated fairly. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like I was being used as a way to go and drive clickbait and all that kind of nonsense. So it was a good interview. And no, before anybody asks, I have not received any payment from anybody for any interviews that I've had.
Well, yeah, I don't pay my guests. Good luck getting money from me if anybody's trying to get as a guest. I don't have that kind of money. I'm not Tucker Carlson, but not implying that he pays for guests, but I don't have that kind of money. No, it's I feel a bit used by South African media in this whole episode. I contacted media outlets as independent journalists trying to get sources or access to stories over the past 5 years, and every time all these outlets rebuff me, they just ignore me, and then suddenly everybody's my friend. Everybody's my friend when they want to get access to you guys. CBS, ENCA, Newsroom Africa, they're all reaching out to me. And Daily Maverick, a paper that rubbished me, lied about me. And so I tried to help these journalists. I wound up helping the New York Times and others just I guess they lost interest. I even tried to help ENCA, and initially I hadn't heard from you or some other folks that they were interested. So I pressed the 3 that I was in contact with, and they said they didn't want to talk to them. So I got back with the ENCA and said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And they were sitting over here in the States and burning a lot of money, staying in hotels and such, and they wanted to get a story. So I'm glad they got a hold of you, so it wasn't complete waste, because I think the interview was pretty balanced too. And other than the comments I made, but I think that that you came off very well in that, from my perspective, and not that you should come off any other way. But all right, let's shift. Let's talk about life in America. You're now here May 12th, June 12th, 6 weeks. Does it feel real?
No, I keep on telling my wife that one day I'm going to wake up and, it's going to be one of those extended dreams, and I'm going to be back in my bed, worrying about where am I going to get a job and, what's going to happen next down the road for me. Funny story, I do a lot of traveling in the area that I'm in, and there's a place near us that had me kind of a little bit of a heart issue, because I came around the corner and there was a big sign that said Hatfield Auto, and I thought, there's the truth. There's the truth. It's fact now. I'm back in Pretoria. So, yeah.
Hatfield. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's not such a bad part of South Africa, although it's gone a little bit to the dogs of late. But Hatfield's always been a nice area. I think the thing that should have got people's attention is when in broad daylight, they tried to, the gangsters tried to take that Bucky down that had all of the mobile phones in it, and they fired those bullets at those guys, and that guy responded. That was right down the street from McDonald's, which I've driven past hundreds of times. That was pretty scary, and that's in Hatfield, broad daylight. Anyway, yeah, I get your point. You saw Hatfield, and like, oh no, I'm back in Pretoria. What's going on here? So I don't know if you shared with people where you're from in South Africa. I don't recall, and if you're still guarding that, keep it to yourself. But I'm just curious if you can share.
Well, it's pretty much been publicized. We were in Heberden, but previous to that, we were in Meyerton, and that's where our farm was, because everybody's disputing that point.
Right, so you actually were a farmer. You're one of the people, the few that actually were a farmer, because the whole story with this narrative is it's white Afrikaner farmers, which is not even remotely true. They're included, but they're not exclusively the group. But you were farming near Meyerton then.
Yeah, so let me give you a little bit of history.
Sure.
I went to an agricultural school, 3 years of high school. So I spent a lot of time farming there. I've dealt with cattle and with sheep and chickens for a long time, over various periods of time. And then 3 years I was in Meyerton, and we were growing leafy greens, and we had some cattle and some sheep and chickens. And I left there because of what was happening. So it wasn't because I wasn't a farmer anymore and I took an opportunity. I got out of that area because I felt Heberden would be safer.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of people were asking questions, and I think Annika asked this question too. I'm trying to remember from the interview, but we get this a lot. Do you think it was right or was fair that you guys come over here? And Thea, I think, summed this up pretty well, and I think you did very well too in that interview. Basically, listen, it's not your fault or that you were contacted, you were interviewed. The program was announced, you reached out and said you're interested in it, you were picked, and you got to come over. So what's people's beef? That's my words, but I mean, that I think is the gist of what you said. It's just the way it went down. It could have been someone else, but it seems that a lot of the press are just obsessed with how it's not right. Whether it's right or wrong isn't germane. The fact is that there's a program, you applied for it, you got accepted, and here you are. I mean, I think that's pretty accurate, don't you?
Yeah, that's pretty much what my feeling is. I think one of the reasons why I'm part of the original 59 is because when the email came out for, I think it was the business chamber in the US, Neil Diamond.
The Chamber of Commerce.
I got online and got, yeah. So I got online and I submitted there, and then I was watching your videos long before that. And then I was kind of keeping track on what was going on. As soon as the email address for the embassy in Pretoria became available, I applied within minutes of me finding that. And I think I was only had been out for about 45 minutes at that stage. And I got my email in as quick as possible, and I had my family do the same thing.
Yeah. Now, it's we weren't going to go back to that, but since you kind of talked about that. When that email first came out, people were sharing it, and I said, I don't know the provenance of it, because people sent me copies of the email address because they got a note back, that first day. It was an auto reply. And they said, is this real? And I did some, digital forensics on this with some folks to make sure it was real. The address looked real, but you got to check this stuff. So initially I didn't endorse that email for like first couple of days. I said, I need to investigate this. And then after I saw that it was legitimate, I said it. But you obviously didn't wait for me. You went ahead and jumped on and sent it right away. Good for you.
Yeah, I remember when you were doing that and questioning the legitimacy of it. And, I think I was talking to you over email at that stage as well, kind of going, I'm in the IT space and everything looks legit. And I had already done that check that you were doing. And then that's why I jumped on it that quickly.
Yeah, I remember that now because I was getting so many messages, and I remember yours, but it faded from, and we responded. I think I might have responded briefly, but it's there's been so much uncertainty because the U.S. government just hasn't been forthcoming with information, and it continues now. But let's jump to the states. Okay, Sweet Home Alabama. Annika revealed that as she played that song. Are you hot? Are you melting? Is it Durban-like down there?
104 degrees yesterday. And the job that I do, I travel a lot.
That's 38 degrees Celsius for those who don't know.
Yeah. So I got to get used to converting back and forth. So I see 104 and I just stick with it. But yeah, it's hot. It's really hot. And you can go from absolutely sunny day to pouring down with rain within an hour. It's the weather changes in an instant. And it goes from like 37, 38 degrees down to 22, 23 when it rains. And then an hour later, it's back up to 30, 35 degrees. So it's very erratic, but it's lovely. I mean, it's stunning.
Well, I've spent a amount of time in Alabama. My grandfather worked for Redstone Arsenal. He lived in Birmingham for a while. He was an aviation pioneer, worked on the Atlas V tail assembly for the rocket that took the Apollo missions to the moon. But that's not to impress you. He was still an SOB who abandoned his kids and his wife. So, but he still had an interesting career. But also went down to the Air War College a number of years in a row when I was an instructor, professor at the U.S. Army War College. Maxwell Air Force Base down there. So I've been down in Alabama quite a bit, and it always strikes me as bloody hot and humid. It's just not my cup of tea. So did you ask for Alabama, or is that just where you wound up?
I asked for Alabama.
You're crazy, man.
I heard some really good stories about Alabama. So, yeah.
All right. So, listen, look, you'll believe anything. I have some wonderful beachfront property. It's located in this place called the Karoo. Could I interest you in it? All right, so far, I mean, because the other interview was all about process and everything and whether it's right and legitimate. Let's ask about your experiences. What has been the most surprising thing thus far for you and your family, or maybe just you personally, since you've arrived? You've been here 6 weeks. You're no longer exhausted from the jet lag. You're adjusting to the heat of Alabama and humidity. What's the thing that surprised you the most so far?
Look, I can rattle off a list of maybe 20 items, but the standout item is security. That's the biggest thing. I mean, it's not uncommon for you to walk through a parking area and hear an engine running, and there's nobody in the car. It's just there's nothing. So people have got no regard for that kind of thing. They'll leave their car unlocked, walk inside, get something, do whatever, have absolutely no concerns, and then come out and do whatever. And it could be 5 minutes, it could be an hour. It doesn't matter. And that is bar none the biggest thing. Friendly people, all that kind of thing. There's amazing things I can say about Alabama and just the American culture as a whole, but that is the standout item.
Well, that's awesome. It's I'm glad to hear that. But we also heard that in the other interview I did the other day with two folks. They said the same thing. There's a car on the street that's just running and the keys in it, and nobody stole it, and they were shocked. I don't recommend that in East Philadelphia, South Philadelphia, South Philly. I don't recommend that, or in D.C. I don't recommend that. But yeah, parts of the country certainly that's fine. What about the food? Any surprises there?
Grits was interesting. I mean, it's
grits, pop, no thank you. I ate grits in the Army, but you got to pour lots of syrup on top of it so it's palatable. It's just like pop, no thanks.
So for the South African listeners, grits is basically coarse pop.
Yeah.
It's not
like,
ground down as fine, but it's
like,
basically pop.
It's like pebbles. Yeah, soft pebbles. Yeah.
It's not bad. I mean, being from South Africa, pop is part of the equation there. So it's nice. If you dress it up nicely, it can be tasty. But other than that, food wise, a lot of the same. I've been talking to a lot of people about stuff from South Africa, and they'll go, "Oh yeah, we've got this." They got something in a different name that's very similar. It's such a very fine margin difference. It's like jerky versus biltong. Jerky is, as far as I'm concerned, disgusting, but it's not too different to what biltong is.
Sorry, I was addressing something in the chat here. Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's a big difference between biltong and jerky, but they're different. They're different flavors, different things suit people differently. Okay, so if that's food, what about the family? How are they adjusting? I've talked to some of the other 59ers, and they're like, my kids can walk on the street. We can go to the park, and I don't have to worry. What's it like for you? How's the family adjusting?
Look, without repeating what everybody else has said, the kids can go out and play. My daughter has already had her first experience in an emergency room because she was riding a bicycle with a bunch of friends that she'd made on the street. And unfortunately, she was coming down a hill and she came off the bike and had a nice big blue eye and busted lip and all that kind of thing. So she was comfortable enough that she could be moving around with the other kids, that she could do the normal kid stuff and have accidents and do all those kinds of things.
Wow, it's a different world, man. I was a kid that happy. You just get up, make sure nobody's looking so you don't cry, and then walk away, man. We didn't go to emergency rooms.
She hit pretty bad. Her helmet was smashed. The doctor was actually concerned that her orbital socket had a fracture.
Oh my goodness! Well, it's a good thing she went, got an X-ray, then everything. It's interesting because that's one of the questions people always have about the program, talk about healthcare and this sort of thing. And I tell them that in America, as far as I know, in every jurisdiction, it's illegal to deny people care in an emergency room. You have to provide care there. The question comes, whether you have a general practitioner for regular medical care. But so obviously you've already dealt with something medical. You had to go to emergency room.
So you're spot on with it. It's illegal to turn somebody away if they need emergency medical care. And because part of the program, we get Medicaid for a period of time. We're not 100% sure how long that lasts. For the kids, it's a year, minimum of a year. But for the adults, I think it's only 3 or 4 months. So we'll clarify that. But as far as medical care is concerned, it is like nothing I've ever experienced. I've been through private care, I've been through public care. It's just at a different level. Everything is fluid. Everybody knows what they're doing. There's a job for each person. It was such a pleasant experience that we're worried about our daughter and the injuries she'd sustained, but we were so comfortable with people who were coming through there that she'd stop crying and she was calm. She was having fun with the nurses and the students and everything that were coming through there. And being in Birmingham, it's a medical center. It's huge. Medicine is huge in Birmingham. So you've got all these students coming through. Then somebody who's maybe got 6 months or a year's worth of experience, they behave like they got 20 years experience. It's impressive.
So when I came back to America from Ethiopia in 2015, this was the time that Barack Obama was, dividing America and breaking it down and creating this racial narrative. And you could be forgiven if you were a foreign national who came to America and thought there must be race wars here, because I was in Africa with the news, seeing CNN International and Al Jazeera and all these networks talking about race relations and how black people and white people are killing each other and racism was rampant everywhere. Well, you live in the deep South. I mean, it doesn't get any deeper south than Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi area. And I as I said, I go down there frequently. What's it been like for you so far? Do you see any tension between black folks and white folks? I mean, obviously, this is an anecdotal question because you can't speak for every place but as you mentioned, Birmingham. What's it like? Do you see, black folks and white folks beating each other on the street or animosity, calling each other names? What do you see that? Because that's a narrative that's portrayed overseas. And so as a foreign national now living here, what are your thoughts on that?
Look, not from my experience at all. Interestingly enough, I deal with life insurance on the side, and I travel all over, like the central Alabama. So I get into areas defined as ghettos, and into the city centers, and then more affluent areas. So I've seen a lot of the area. Yes, there's violence in certain areas, but it's nothing like we know. And funnily enough, I checked the stats yesterday because we were looking at demographics. Alabama, specifically Birmingham, is the exact opposite of what the national numbers are. So it's 60, high 60s to 20 something for the national average, whereas it's inverted. It's 66.5% black population in Birmingham. So you would expect, based on what media tells you and everything, that it would be a far more violent, dangerous place to live. Friendly, kind people, invite absolute strangers in their home. I mean, you set appointments and everything with what we do, but still you're a stranger. And the people are polite, they're kind, they're friendly, they open up to you. It's foreign. It feels odd that is how things work.
It's like a different world.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So you've mentioned a couple things about getting around, and I guess we should. It seems apparent that you're already employed. You've already found work.
Well, it is a 1099, as they call it, so commission only. So I haven't earned anything yet, but that's on track. I'm actually interviewing for a second job now after our discussion, and we're starting a side project probably over this weekend. So essentially, I'll have 3 jobs.
Well, that sounds very American. Having two or three jobs. I essentially have 3 jobs too. I'm supposed to be retired, but yeah, and I'm familiar with 1099s because I get them for my consulting work. I get paid that way, and that's So yeah, okay. Well, that's interesting. So I'm guessing you must have transport already. I mean, you're not taking a bus to get to all these meetings.
No, I was lucky enough to find a really good deal. I bought a vehicle for just over $2,000, and it's got a few little issues, but I think it's cost me about $3,000 all in all for the vehicle. It's a loan I made, so I've got to pay that off. It's not like I had the money, but it serves the purpose. You can pick up a vehicle for $1,500 to $2,000 and have something that'll serve you for the next 2, 3, 4 years. And the thing about vehicles in this country is you're not married to the vehicle, not like in South Africa where it's so expensive to change vehicles. You can buy a vehicle now and in 6 months' time go and trade it in on something else, and you can kind of level up as your funds allow. So vehicles are accessible and it's easy to get around.
Well, you mentioned that you said you're able to get a loan. I'm guessing that was either for the car lot or a car loan, because I mean, at this point you wouldn't have had a credit history, or did you get it from a bank? I mean, if you can.
No, it wasn't commercial at all.
Okay.
It was a personal loan.
Okay, a personal loan. Okay, yeah. Well, that's. I mean, the reason I asked, not to be intrusive, but people ask these questions, how are you doing all these things, and I think it's important for people to understand, because a lot of people, again, I'm not advocating anybody come here as a refugee, and I'm not telling you not to come here. The only thing I'm telling you is to stay off my damn lawn. That's the only thing I'm telling the refugees: stay off my lawn. But seriously, it's a lot of people have this warped view because of the propaganda and the disinformation, misinformation that's spread about the refugee program in South Africa. I mean, first off, you have a lovely FEMA tent, I have to say. I like the curtains. I've always had trouble hanging curtains in my tents.
Would you like a better view of my FEMA tent? There's side panels.
Yeah, no. So the FEMA tent, it's they actually the propaganda. They actually said that half of you had already gone home already. That you've gone back, because people will say anything, and that's so that's why I asked some of these questions. All right, so the good news, I guess. Go ahead.
Sorry, if I may. Look, I just want to say something and clarify it for people. Understand this. You get look at it as a jumpstart loan, if you want to put it that way. You get given the tools to get yourself off the ground and working. You're not given a job. You're not given anything. You're funded for a very short period of time. And after that, you need to make sure that you get stuff done. So our funding period is coming to an end now. This is the last month that they're helping us out in terms of accommodation. So if I don't have a job now, I'm going to be in a bad space. I'm not going to be able to do anything. So it's up to you to come here and make good on the opportunity that you've been given. And to answer your comment that you said about credit record, none of that transfers. Doesn't matter how good or bad your credit record is in South Africa. My credit record at the moment is exactly that.
Yep.
So I've got to build that up, and I've worked with the banks, and there's banks that'll help you. They'll give you a credit card, but you have to give a deposit for the exact amount that credit card's worth, and then you build your credit up from there. So you're a newborn baby as far as the world is concerned, as the U.S. economy is concerned. So a lot of hard work to be done, but if you put in the effort, man, the opportunities are there.
Absolutely, and I think that's important for people to understand, because you're given a jump start. You aren't just thrown to the fish. You aren't just tossed out for the shark meat for chump. But it's not forever. And the idea is refugees who come here if they're capable of, they're expected to work. And yes, they pay taxes as soon as they start earning pay to pay taxes. But for those who have difficulty finding work, it's not the end of the world. We have food banks. We have SNAP. You can get and qualify for. There are assistance programs. But the idea is not to turn refugees into wards of the state or SASA grant recipients. That's not the purpose of a refugee program. The purpose of a refugee program is to extract people from a conflict, a war zone, or a place where they've been persecuted or will be persecuted, so that we protect their life, their safety. And we bring them here out of the generosity of our hearts, and we give them a kickstart and a head start, but they're expected to make their own way. And so you have to be ready to hit the ground running when you get here, don't you, Errol?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You have to. Just a little bit off topic, just for those who are planning to come through. I don't recall seeing it anywhere in the documentation and stuff, but get an IDP. Doesn't matter what state you go to, international driver's permit. If you got a license and you got a valid South African license, have that and bring it with you. It makes an enormous difference. A lot of jobs, you just won't get the job without it.
Let me ask you a question here, because it's not necessary to have an international driver's license. Your South African driver's license, you can drive on here in the States. So why are you recommending that? If
you're a visitor, you can drive on your license for extended time period, like a year or something like that.
1 year, exactly.
But if you become a resident, that's 30 days.
Okay,
each state is different.
Right,
so
each state
Alabama,
is different.
It's 30 days.
Yeah.
But if you become a resident, which refugees are as soon as they arrive, you only have 30 days.
Right. So
and without a job, it's difficult. Without a driver's license, it's difficult.
Well, but that's why the driver's license, the international one, doesn't make sense to me, because you're coming here, as you said, you're a resident, so having the international driver's license won't matter because it will no longer be valid. You only get that short period of time. Like Pennsylvania is like 60 days. So as I told people before, I lived in Pennsylvania when I came here, but I was active duty military. So by law, I'm allowed to retain my residency, which is in Ohio. So I had an Ohio driver's license. I voted in Ohio, even though I didn't live there since 1989. Anyway, so I lived here with an Ohio driver's license, and that was legal. But if I was just a regular person living in Pennsylvania, I would have had to have a Pennsylvania license within 60 days. So when I retired from active duty, I went in within 30 days and got my driver's license. But if you have a South African driver's license, you're just going to have to go in and get yourself a driver's license. I think you're going to be okay. Because you mentioned the international driver's license, just kind of threw me off. I was curious.
So just to fill a few blanks on that. So if you come here, you can use your license for 30 days. If you've got an IDP... Alabama, yes. Yeah. If you've got an IDP with the refugee status, that extends to 90 days. The other thing that you get on top of that is if you get a license in Alabama, again, I'm not sure what the rest of the states would do, but you have to drive with a licensed driver for 6 months. If you've got an IDP with a valid South African driver's license, you don't need to do that. You skip that step.
Yeah, that's some Alabama thing. That's not the standard all over. I mean, in Pennsylvania, if you have a driver's license from overseas, you come here, you might be forced to take the written test, but many times, depending on the country, they just convert it for you. So mine was another U.S. license. There's reciprocity, so I didn't have to do anything. All I did was go in, get a photograph, update. They put a veteran thing on my driver's license, and organ donor, and boom, shakalaka, I was done in 15 minutes. But if I'd had a German driver's license or a French driver's license, those convert. But sometimes they'll make you take the test, the driving test. But yeah, no, that's an Alabama thing. That's not like that in every state. Again, people have to remember it's 50 sovereign states and territories, 4 territories, and each of them have their own rules and laws. But the good news is that it's not like you're going through customs immigration to go from Alabama to Mississippi. You're just driving over a state line. Just the laws are different in each state. So people have to understand that. Very different than the experience in South Africa that you go through. All right, so vehicle, building credit history. What you were talking about is what's called a secured credit card. You put money in the
Yes.
bank. So, yeah, so that's what that is. And that helps you build it. Arctic was talking about people getting prepaid cards. That works as well, too. But all of this hinges on one very critical thing, which you have to get right away, and that's your Social Security number. How did that process go?
Well, when we actually figured out what the process was, it was really quick. We went in on the Tuesday. Yeah, I made a booking on the Monday. We drove to probably about 80 miles to another city, and we went and did the interviews and everything there. And the following week, we had the Social Security numbers. But there's a document you fill in when you get here that basically should apply for that, and they should contact you off the back of that. That process failed halfway through, so we got the Social Security numbers ourselves, and it was stupidly simple. You just have to be there with the right paperwork in hand, and they say 6 weeks, but normally within a week or two, you've got your card.
Now, when you went to the Social Security office, were they satisfied with your passport, or were they expecting you to provide a birth certificate?
So you had to have the I-94, you had to have your passport with the stamp in it. For the kids, we had to have birth certificates in place as well. So the adults only needed a passport and the I-94. Kids needed birth certificates, and then marriage certificate we needed as well.
Okay, so that's kind of what I expected. That's so people, please pay attention. That's kind of documents are needed on this side because people are always asking questions about that. Now, you came over with you've got a whole platoon there. I think you have 27 children, something like that.
Yeah, everybody gives me a hard time about that. We came over as 9 in total. So
Woo!
It's my wife and I, my 18-year-old son and two younger daughters, and then my daughter and her husband with their 2 kids. So 2 separate families, but as a group, we came over as 9.
Okay, well, let me ask that question then, because it's one I've asked of others too. And for instance, Santana's mother came over with her, 2 adults. So the adults, kids that came over, did they apply on their own, or did you put them as head of household, and they applied and said, "Hey, we want to"? So how did you all wind up together? Because you obviously asked for it, right?
Yeah, so the original letter that I sent through, I put on quite a bit of detail around what had happened to me and our family circumstance and how we all lived together. In there, I indicated that I was a head of household and listed everybody under 21, so my son and my 2 daughters. And then I immediately notified my other 2 daughters to go and send their letters in, and my mother-in-law. And they all put her together. And in my letter, I made reference to them, and they made reference to me. And we went for interviews. They kind of put us all together like that.
All right. Folks, don't worry about what the I-95 form is. It's a form that you get when you enter the country. It's under refugee status. There's different forms that come out. So it'll all be taken care of if you're in a refugee program. It's not something to lose any sleep over right now. I'm sure Errol didn't know what the heck the form was when he applied for this. You find out as you go along.
Well, it's an I-94. And when you arrive, you get a packet. And in there, it gives you a few actions you need to take. And one of the actions, it gives you the link to go and download your I-94. So it does not exist until you hit American soil.
Did I say I-95? That's Interstate 95. That probably was a faux pas there. That's the highway that runs from Maine to Miami on the East Coast. It's one of our main highways. So, yeah, I-94. Yeah, don't worry about it. It's something you'll find out when you get here. Yeah, Courtney, who lives in Ohio, is saying Ohio is simple. You take a small test and driving test, and boom, you're done. Yeah, I know. I drove in Ohio. It's scary. Those people know how to drive. No, I'm just kidding. I lived in Ohio. No. So Errol, is there anything been difficult? I mean, because it's not all handed to you. It's not all, roses and lilacs. I mean, it's a challenge. But has anything been difficult so far in the first 6 weeks?
Well, setting up your home, getting to know things. You don't know anything. As much as you think you know a lot, you don't know. And you don't know what you don't know is probably the biggest thing. Is there are certain things that you just need to comply with, and there's certain things you just need to do, and nobody's telling you what those things are. Our caseworker, both ladies we've been dealing with, have been amazing. They've been really helpful, and they've filled in a lot of those blanks. But you only find certain things out once you cross that bridge. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's difficult, lack of knowledge. I think that has been the biggest difficulty. Getting gas into my car for the first time was an experience. I thought I was smart enough to figure it out. It took me about 15 minutes and ending up going into the store and paying the woman cash to get the pump to work. all because the card I had wouldn't work on those pumps because it was one of those temporary cards.
Yep. Yeah, well, yeah, that I get that, I understand it. So Mask Girl said, "Damn, I wish I'd known about the program when first people applied." Well, I wish that I hadn't been shadow banned back in those days and people didn't know about my content. You would have found it here because I went live 2 hours after President Trump issued the executive order and analyzed that executive order 100% correctly. And I've been telling people since the 7th of February, 2 hours after it happened. You know, we had 38,000 people that tuned in that night, and that was in the morning. It was 7 p.m., so it was 1 o'clock in the morning South Africa time. By the time I got off air, it was 3:30 in the morning, and we had thousands, I think 6,000 or 8,000 people watching at that time. It was crazy. And I only got off the air because I went on to Gareth Cliff and told them that this thing was out there. But then I came back that night and did it again. But it's a shame, Mask Girl, but YouTube has shadow banned my platform for a long time, and so people who didn't know about it, otherwise you might have found this early on. So, Errol, you said you were watching my content before the refugee program.
Yeah, I have. Probably since late last year, I've been watching your content. Okay. So that when you went live 2 hours after it was announced, I was in that first announcement that you made. Oh. So again, really appreciative for what you've been doing and the fact that you've just called the facts as the facts are and not wanting to put a slant of your own on it. Whenever anybody asks me about the program and what's happened to me, one of the things I always do is go and check out Colonel Chris Wyatt because he calls the facts as they are. If it's bullshit, he calls bullshit. So, you know, there's no fear or favor. But yeah, been watching your content for a while. Just keeping up to date. I appreciate how you said things, and it just resonated with who I am.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I'm glad to hear that you found that you talk about that, because a number of the people who had interviews, and some of those who didn't go in the first 59 who have been in touch with me, including a friend of mine from Western Cape who flew up, people, they're like, they're asking the interview, so do you know any Americans? And every one of them's like, yeah, Colonel Chris Wyatt. I don't. Did you happen to mention that too, or no? Because it's kind of embarrassing for me that people said that. But you know, I keep hearing from people that, yeah, don't worry, the embassy knows who you are. Not that I'm trying to get the embassy to know who I am, but obviously my name came up a number of times that might have caught them off guard. I'm just saying.
Well, I can tell you, we were one of the groups of people that mentioned your name regularly. So when we got into that first interview, they asked us about who we knew and where we were getting information from. And we're like, the only person that we're getting any kind of source from that we're not researching ourselves is Colonel Chris Wyatt. And we made reference to your YouTube site or at least page. And the first time we mentioned it, they were like, oh, okay. And then the second time we had an interview, they were a lot more informed. They knew who you were. And, you know, they'd obviously gone and done a little bit of research. It was different people, though. So
yeah, so people should, you know, not expect you're necessarily going to see the same people. And also, going forward, you might not have a second interview. You might, you know, it just depends on the circumstance of your case. I think people need to, because that's enough. How many interviews? Relax, guys. What about the INF? This will all come. The only thing, if you're interested in the refugee program, you need to worry about right now is go do the statement of interest, fill it out, and wait your turn. That's all you can do. And that's the key. But get a screen capture when it says it's been submitted. That way you know it's been submitted, because there's no email coming back to you. I think a lot of people spazzing out over that, understandable. So, all right. So what about insurance? You know, you get a car, you got to get insurance. How did you go about that? I mean, I get my insurance through USAA, which is United Services Automobile Association. It's a company founded by Army officers about 100 years ago because they were tired of getting screwed on insurance. They would move from state to state. And say you're in Texas, they put you in California, the Army puts you there. California, like, we don't know. You've never been here before. You don't know a driving record. And of course, it's before computers back in the day. So they would get jacked up into very high insurance rates, even though they were reliable people. So they started a company, said, you know, Army officers, and then all the services were added. But Army officers are more disciplined. They're better behaved. They're not alcoholics for the most part, although we got some of those people too. Everybody's got that. But the point is that Army officers professionals were much lower risk of having accidents, and so they got better rates. So I get my insurance through USAA. I'm not always happy with them, but that's who I get it from. There's a lot of insurance companies in the States. How did you go about looking for insurance?
So I had some local assistance. I went through State Farm.
That's who I had when I came back from Germany, State Farm, back in 1984. 87.
So State Farm, I mean, they're huge. They're all over the country. There is a huge penalty for not having a local driver's license. So I think my insurance at the moment is like $185 for a 2012 vehicle. But as soon as I have my license, that'll drop down to about 60. So having license is a big difference.
That's per month, correct?
Per month, yes.
Yeah,
per month.
Yeah, and by contrast, for 2 vehicles, I was paying $60 a month, but because of Joe Biden destroying the country, I now pay $107 a month. Just in 3 years that idiot was president, or 4 years, it jumped up that much. Yeah, but even so, I mean, with 2 vehicles, you can see that I'm still getting a much better deal than you're getting because you don't have an established record in the States, which is what you're trying to establish now.
Well, it's not just that; it's not having a license. That is the critical one.
Well, that's what I meant by not having.
The broker I dealt with, he said, as soon as I get that license in place, which I've got the learners, but I didn't get the written, the practical side done, that'll drop dramatically by 2/3 easily.
Well, one of the problems,
yeah.
One of the problems with insurance that we've seen is that the automobile part industry has become so expensive, and repairing cars has become cost prohibitive. And that's one reason why insurance rates have been jacked up, even though people aren't having more accidents. All right, so insurance, we talked about medical, we've talked a little bit about food. Are you in a permanent place now, or are you still in your FEMA tent?
No, we've got a permanent place now.
Okay.
So they helped us out with a deposit. Well, it was only $200. And the first 2 months rent that they helped us out with. So after that, we have to sign the lease. They don't do any of that for you. So you have to go and get that all coordinated. And yeah, we've got our own place, and it's nice and comfortable. It's not a as they like to refer to Africa, a shithole, but it's decent. It's nice and pleasant.
Now, most places require a deposit when you're renting, or would they help you with the deposit, or that's something you had to come up with on your own?
No, they helped us out with that.
Okay, that's great, because I mean, it can be pretty expensive depending where you're at. You know, sometimes you want 2 or more months deposit, and of course, the reason for that, folks, is that not everybody's a reliable tenant. They damage places, and they keep a deposit, so it's a security deposit to fix anything you've broken, but in case you've broken things. So a number of not a number, but a few of the 59ers have already decided to move on to different places because of job opportunities, and some have already moved already, but not a lot, just a few. It sounds like you're comfortable in Alabama. You asked for it, you're there, and it's like Toyota. You asked for it, you got it.
I'm loving it here. My family's comfortable. We're getting the kids into school, so they're going into summer school now on July 8th, and they're starting a full-time school August 25th-ish.
About 9th of August.
Oh, 9th of August. So their schooling's all been sorted out. Got her into quite a high-graded school, so the schools are like 8s and 9s. So, you know, that's just something worth mentioning when you do look for a place to stay. Check out the schools if you've got kids or you're planning to have kids before you pick a place to live. That's a big factor. But yeah, loving it. Yeah, friendly people, just a good place to live. And Costco, of course, Costco.
Costco, yeah. All right, so I mean, I'm sure those school fees are just eating you alive, and uniforms and all that stuff you have to pay to send the kids to school, right?
Is that a trick question, Chris?
It is a trick question.
Yeah, no schools. Yeah, public schools
Yep.
are free. So some areas you'll have kindergarten free as well, but most areas from primary school, intermediate, middle school, and high school, all of that is paid for by the state, the county that you're in.
Yes, you say that, but it's actually paid for by me, the taxpayer, with my property. That's actually pays for it. Whether you got kids at school or not, if you own a house, you're paying for the local public school. Usually, in most jurisdictions, that's the norm we have based on here in America. Ostensibly, you're also paying for it as a renter because your landlord is paying property taxes, and they must be putting it in your rent. But we see it directly here. I see that the local high school here must have gold-plated commode seats based on what I pay in property taxes to the school. My township gets almost nothing to repair the broken roads around here. Only 3/4 of the tax money goes to the school district, so they better be putting out freaking Einsteins, or I'm going to be unhappy about that. But yeah, that was a trick question because there are no school fees. Anywhere in America, you can send your kids to public school, and in most places, except for some inner city schools that are poorly run, your kids are going to get a decent education, and it's going to come out well. You can also homeschool, all that. You can do distance, whatever you want, but public schools. So summer school, did you put them in summer school just so they get acclimated very quickly? Because, I mean, most kids don't go to summer school unless they misbehaved.
Well, that's the objective, is just to acclimate. So the one daughter was in grade 4 and she got halfway through, and now they're putting into grade 5, so she's skipping a bit. And also the subjects are completely different. So grade 4 South Africa versus grade 4 in the US is two very different things. I mean, the schooling systems is go down to a county level, not to a national level. So that's also something that's important to mention.
Absolutely. I mean, local school boards are critically important. That's where unlike the Bella Bill, which is stripping that away from South Africans, we have authority over our schools. And anybody can run to be on the school board, even if you don't have kids. It's an elected position, and you get on there and you determine the direction the school's going to go. In fact, our local high school here had an issue last year because of transgenderism, and they wanted to let biological kids go in the bathroom that doesn't match their biology. And it was shot down, which, the school board shot it down. Here is a rather conservative area, very Republican and conservative. And then prior to that, we had one of the school clubs wanted to start a Wiccan club, and that was shot down. So anyway, but so I think one of the key things here, though, of course, is that, and I don't know how this is in South Africa from a standpoint, but I think it's not quite the same. But if you want to be successful in America, you've got to be involved in your kids' education. You can't just send them off to public school and ignore them. You've got to see what their homework is. You've got to see what they're studying, get involved. If necessary, go to parent-teacher meetings, things like that. In South Africa, it seems to me a little more standoffish, that you don't really get involved. Is that a misinterpretation on my part?
So, yes, conventional schooling in South Africa is very much standoffish. Teachers do not give feedback like they should. We were lucky. We put our kids into online schooling quite a while ago, and the engagement there it's immediate. If something comes up, you get told about it. It's all electronic, so everything's there available at your fingertips all the time. And the little bit of experience that I have here, and what I've been told, that's very similar on this side. You engage with your kids, you help them build, you go and do all of that work with them. We found out about a program called dual enrollment. When you get to your higher grades, double enrollment, dual enrollment. But basically, you could, in your grade 10, 11, 12, you could do extra credit for varsity subjects, and you could actually finish your high school career with an associate's degree, just by doing extra work while you're in those higher grades. So there's a lot of opportunities. If your kids put in the effort and they put in the time to go and do what they need to do, there are bursaries for pretty much everything here. So if you want to go and do something, you go and identify what you want to do, you work towards it, you find out what the criteria is, and you go and get a bursary, and you go and study towards it. I was told yesterday by one of the ladies I work with that her daughter works at Taco Bell. And Taco Bell actually has a fund that they, when you pay your bill, you can donate to a school bursary. And that bursary is for Taco Bell employees, the students that are there, so they can pay for their fees. And all they do is they just apply to their head office, and the head office would then go and give them the bursary if they qualify to go and study whatever they need to go and study. So opportunities like that exist all over the place, yeah.
Well, we should probably focus very quickly on vernacular here. So you're using the term bursary. That's a South African context. In America, we talk about tuition. And then talking about scholarships or tuition or grants, and that's what you're talking about here. Sounds like scholarships. Starbucks does something similar. They pay tuition for students. The bursary, if you go to university here, is the office where you go to pay your bills. So just a little bit. We typically call them scholarships, just so people understand the difference, because the language is different. It's not a robot. R2-D2 is a robot. It's a traffic light. So make sure that. But I do see that you've already switched over from petrol to gasoline. It kind of caught me off guard when you said that earlier.
Yeah, I've needed to go and do that a few times already. So you have to pick up on it pretty quickly. So the reason why I use as much as possible the South African terminology is just because I'm assuming a lot of the people that are watching are from South Africa, and can give them a little bit of insights and stuff the way they understand it.
Yeah, gotcha. So no, and that's why I'm helping them adjust to the American English. So it's great that you do that. You've watched my program. I use a lot of either UK English or South African English a lot of times because I know my audience. A question for Alan: does the matric translate to anything US? Yeah, it does. It makes you a high school graduate, essentially. Now, Errol, that raises a question. So have you had any help from the immigration agent taking your CV and translating it into American? Has that been done already?
So I was lucky enough to have somebody here help me with that, but that was something that was offered by the caseworker because they had a team there and each person specialized in different areas. So yes, that was offered. I didn't take advantage of it because I'd already had somebody helping me with that.
Okay. Well, 6 weeks in, how often are you in touch with the case officer? Does it happen once a week or a couple times a week, or has it been a few weeks?
We have an open line to our caseworker. So when she needs us, she phones us. And when we need her, we phone her. Sometimes we phone her multiple times a day. Sometimes we don't speak to her for like 5 or 6 days at a time. So there isn't a set kind of, you may only call me on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. kind of thing. This side, we were lucky enough that our caseworker herself is a refugee from Ukraine 2.5 years ago. So she went through the exact same process as what we've gone through. So she's a lot more engaged because she knows what it's like. She's not an American citizen that's never experienced that, trying to help somebody that's going through, a life-changing event. So that definitely did help a lot.
You make a good point there because almost every case I've spoken to the 59ers, almost all of them have a former refugee who is their case agent or officer or caseworker. Almost all of them have someone that's gone through the program, and that's a good point because people always ask, well, why would you have someone from Somalia being your caseworker? Well, they went through the same experience. They know what it's like. But I mean, Errol, you have to figure you've got some advantages here. I mean, obviously, you're not speaking English in self-defense. You speak English well enough. That's a huge advantage up on Somalis or Burmese or Uyghurs who come here, or Ukrainians. It gives you a head start. Has that been a major help for you? I mean, or I'm sure you run into the American euphemisms and American words and usages that are a little bit of stumbling blocks here and there. But by and large, do you feel you have a big advantage over most people coming over because of the fact that you know English?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things that our caseworker mentioned was she had to learn English when she arrived, and it was a huge stumbling block for her, and she's kind of there where she needs to be now. And I'm going to jump back a little bit to where we were talking about education and that kind of thing. One of the big things is the language is the changes in spelling and all that kind of is a big deal. So especially Afrikaans people, trying to communicate in English, and then also South African English being, very much UK English based. Like a good example is pediatrics. I went in we had to go and open a file for our kids so that they can go and have assessment done as part of this program. And the woman said to me, no problem, email address is whatever @pediatrics.com. And I typed out the message and I showed it to her and I said, is that right? She went, no, can't you spell? What's wrong with you? So yeah, it's funny stuff, but yeah, being able to speak English. Unfortunately, I'm well versed and have a good vocab, so I can fit in with most people. The most common thing I get is people are going to love your accent because I love your accent, that kind of thing. And then also when I tell them about my son going to high school, they're going, all right, make sure he takes a baseball bat with him because the girls are going to be all over him with that accent. So there is an advantage.
One of the folks says only 52 likes. No, it's not 52 likes. It's 530. YouTube doesn't actively update your screen. Refresh your screen, you'll see it's 534 likes. But yeah, that reminds us there are 800 freeloaders right now. Now 1,400. How about hitting that like button? It doesn't cost you anything but a moment of your time. Just reach right down there. Not hard to do. Right below the video, little button down there. Push it.
That was easy.
See, piece of cake, man. Yeah, c'est facile en français. Okay, so Errol, I keep hearing kids in the background. Is your wife keeping them at bay? What's going on? I hear kids.
Yeah, they're in the room reading a book, keeping themselves busy. They very much know everything that's going on and all the interviews that I've had, and they know about this discussion with you, but they're keeping quiet in the background and just doing their own thing for now. It is fortunately not that hot at the moment, but it's getting hotter. So them being outside is a little bit of a problem right now.
So I think you're going to have to leave here in a bit, but I think we have a little more time, don't we? Or do you have to leave shortly?
I'm good for probably another 20 minutes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't want to get carried away. We get in the middle of something, and then you have to break contact. Use an Army phrase there. But what about shopping? What's that been like? I mean, look, I mean, you've got Pick and Pay and Checkers and malls all over the place. And in fact, to be honest, South African malls, many of them are nicer than our malls because we've taken a step backwards. But what's the shopping experience been like for you?
Look, it's a simple answer is there's always a deal to be had. And there's in this area, I don't know how pervasive it is, but I'm sure there's other places like it. There's like Publix, which is essentially what we would know as like a Pick and Pay style store. Then you get Walmart, which is the guys that bought out Macro and all that kind of thing. So you got this enormous store that does food on one side and and fishing equipment on the other side. So you can pretty much walk through and get anything you need out of it. And then you go and do things like joining a club like Costco or Sam's, where you buy the same product in bulk for half the price. So there's always a deal to be had. It depends on where you feel like shopping. And I think one of the things that kind of stands out for me is a lot of the stores are open until 11 p.m. Yep. When you get home from work, I work a fairly late shift, so I only get home at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And I can still go to a shop and go and buy whatever I need and be home. It's a bit foreign. Life starts a little bit later here, so like 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, things really get going. But they operate way into the evening, even like it's almost up to midnight for some of them.
Well, I'm not surprised that you joined Costco. I would have expected that. I mean, I think you single-handedly lowered the Afrikaans speaking population of South Africa by 3% by bringing your family over here. So you're going to want those bulk purchases. But those discount clubs are good for many things. If you're just looking for a laptop or, even books, it used to be DVDs, not so much anymore, but camping equipment, they carry a wide variety of stuff and you get some good deals here. I've got Costco, I've got BJ's, which is Berkeley Jensen, and then I've got Sam's Club, but I rarely get to that one. Unfortunately, you have to pay a membership fee for those because that's how they make their real money is on membership, but then try to keep the costs at flat cost for stuff. But you can get all kinds of things, and people love Costco. One thing I've noticed is that and that's why I know how many immigrants have been and how many illegal aliens have been dumped in our neighborhoods is when I go to Costco, that is definitely the world because immigrants and illegals find Costco pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like refugees found it pretty quickly, too.
Look, Costco is amazing. I mean, you can go buy a car there. You can buy insurance. You can go and buy a new TV.
You can take a cruise.
Go buy yourself breakfast. It's crazy.
A bed, a cruise. Take your pick. It's pretty wild. No, because they can deal in volume. They bulk because they've got millions of members, and so that gives them a lot of if they want to negotiate a discount rate for cruises for people to go to the Caribbean, they just go to Disney and say, listen, we've got 16 million members here. Can we get this price cut by 25%? And you can negotiate. So it works really well. So you were mentioning earlier, did I hear correctly? You're one of the things you're doing right now is you're working in insurance. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. That's got to be challenging.
It is. Dealing with people and trying to sell them stuff is always tricky, but it's very rewarding when you get to see, that you've helped somebody out because I deal with life and health, so it's kind of what we would know in South Africa as funeral plans and that type of thing. So, it's helping people prepare for when things do happen. And it's you would think it's an expensive exercise, but it's a lot of the times we'll sign somebody up and they'll pay $10 and they'll get like 30,000 worth of insurance when they do die, and life expectancy is set at 100 years on this. So, they cover it until they hit 100. So yeah, it's very rewarding.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's, and I think that's something people forget. Unfortunately, death is expensive. It costs a lot of money to deal with someone passing. It's a lot of money, and it's not just here; it's in many parts of the world. So that's interesting that you found your way into that. Do you think you'd ever get into farming again, or is that something that's out of your life now?
No, absolutely. Farming is very much one of my plans. I'm just trying to put funds together to be able to go and do that. There's no, you walk in here and you were a farmer. Okay, he has a farm and he has a tractor and he has a this or that. You have to build up to get to that point. So if you're going to buy it in credit, you're going to still take a year and a half to build your credit record to be able to do it. And if you want to buy it cash, well, then it's going to take you a few more years to get to the point that you can do that. I've already secured a place where I can get, maybe an acre or two that I can start using, half a hectare to a hectare. There's definitely a plan that I want to put aquaponics systems in place around here and start farming again.
Wow, I mean, I'm envious. I can't buy land here. It's $50,000 an acre in central Pennsylvania. This land has all been claimed a long time ago. There's a spot I'd love to buy some land, but I looked at it, and for just a few hectares, it was like $80,000. All I want to do is put some beehives on it, but I can't afford that. It's crazy. But you live in Alabama where the land is much more reasonable, but here in Pennsylvania, it's off the charts. I mean, the land here has been parceled out for almost 300 years, and it's expensive.
So I wish I could look at farmland to buy. Right now, it's just to go and lease it from somebody. Yeah. So one day when I'm big and I can afford that kind of thing, I'll do it.
Yeah, no, I don't want to lease. I want the land to do what I want on it, and that's why I'm stuck. I'm going to have to move to Wyoming or Colorado if I want to get some land I can afford. It's just pricey up here. But so what are you looking forward to now? The kids going off to school? I mean, is that something you're looking forward to? And then so that's the first question. Then I want to get back to the rest of the family. But what's the next thing you're looking forward to? Because it's summertime. This is when most families are taking their kids on vacation. But you guys just got here. You got to build some wealth. You got to get settled. Probably not thinking about going down to the beach.
So no, we're trying to put something in place where we can have the kids out at the pool on a regular basis. The complex that we're living in has got a communal pool with a cooker and that kind of thing. So we're making up for the lack of holiday time by going out there and having a barbecue or a braai, by the pool. We did one the other day and then the rain came and chased us away. But yeah, that's just getting the little quality of life things sorted out. I'm yet to get any kind of income that I've earned myself. We've had some support, mainly around like food stamps, the SNAP program and that kind of thing. So I'm waiting until my bank account starts getting money in that I've earned. Then we're going to go and do some of the fun stuff. Like Georgia Aquarium is one of the things that's very much on the radar. My wife really wants to go there. And there are some amazing places around just within 30 or 40 miles from me where if you drive out of the city, it's like you're driving through the forest. You just got these 30, 40 meter tall trees all over the place. It's just amazing.
Absolutely. As I said, I've been to Alabama many times. So you've got other adult family members, or any of them, have they had any success? Have they looked for work, or are they working yet? Anything like that?
So my son-in-law, he got a job 2 days after getting here. He's in HVAC.
Wait. That can't possibly be true. We heard that you're not going to get work. You're living in tents. The Americans are going to ban you. You're all coming home. He got a job 2 days after he got here.
Well, okay. Technically 4 days, but 2 days after we kind of got settled here and we started looking, he got a job within 2 days of that. So within the first week, he had a job.
Wow. And you said he's an HVAC technician?
Yeah. So he had experience in South Africa. And the guy he's working for is helping him get through all his certifications and everything. So he started at a reasonable salary, but as soon as he qualifies, it'll essentially double.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get. I don't know what he's getting paid, and I'm not going to ask, but I can tell you the HVAC technicians make a buttload of money. Plumbers make a buttload of money. These are very much in demand skills, and people who have that are going to have no trouble finding work. And in fact, a lot of South Africans, especially Afrikaners, want to be entrepreneurs. You want to be an entrepreneur if you're an HVAC guy, if you're an electrician, if you're a plumber in particular. That's a lucrative way. You start your own business, and you can hang up your shingle, and the phone will ring. That's good to hear.
Absolutely.
That's good to hear that he's got off to a running start. That's awesome. So, Errol, any regrets?
None whatsoever. I mean, so that's a lie. I do have regrets in the sense that there are people in South Africa that I will miss, and those that I will never see, in person again. So that's the only real regret. Beyond that, my kids are set up on a trajectory that they would never have seen where they were. My lifestyle, as much as I'm kind of just getting going, is in a position where I am as comfortable as I need to be. Not unreasonably so, but also I'm not battling. And with the jobs that I've lined up, the job that I'm already doing, I'll earn a reasonable salary. The second job that I'm taking on now, it'll almost triple that number. So, life will be good. I couldn't imagine, other than being an entrepreneur in South Africa, that you would have 2 or 3 jobs that it's feasible that you can earn a reasonable number of. Yeah, as long as you apply yourself, you could have any job anywhere you wanted. And if you couldn't get into the job because of any qualification problems or something like that, you could go and get those qualifications at a reasonable kind of price. So the opportunities are there. You just need to go and take it. And as far as South Africans are concerned, South Africans are hard workers. Come here and just be who you are, and you'll get what you need.
Yeah, you'll succeed. I mean, as I said many, many times, is well, now that you're here, I mean, you didn't come here as an immigrant, came here as a refugee, but essentially you've immigrated here, in essence, even though you're a refugee. My experience is that not refugees, but immigrants to America, lawful, legal refugees, which are not legal immigrants, excuse me, which you'll fall into as a refugee. But legal immigrants to this country tend to outperform people born in this country by and large. I mean, I can point to Ghanaians, I can point to Nigerians, I can point to South Africans, and even people from Vietnam who've come here. And they all seem to have higher per capita incomes than their peers in the same age group within just a couple of years of arriving, because they tend to be hungry. And they're escaping or fleeing from something where they didn't have opportunity, or or it was going badly, and they want to succeed. It sounds like you guys want to succeed.
Oh, absolutely. And I can speak to that comment as well, because I feel that immigrants coming into America have got a fire in them. That fire never dies. You're always going, I never, ever want to go back to where I was because of what it would do to me or to my family or anything like that. So beyond just having, a bit of drive, you've got this goal, this objective. And the numbers reflect that. I was looking at it the other day. South Africans that have come to America exceed the American national average by a number into like 20% above that number. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was quite a big number.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. So in the chat here, Jacqueline Butler just said, my daughter got her own place the second week. My son, the first week. She got work within her first week, and my son got work within 2 weeks. There's plenty of work. Yeah, that's not a concern. A lot of people who are considering refugee program, like, but will I be able to find work? Oh my gosh, you have 40% unemployment in South Africa. You're actually asking that question. Ours is 1/10 on a percentage basis. We've got more open jobs than you've got formal jobs in South Africa. That's pretty scary. So I don't think people should be worried about that. Also, someone said something about age. Age it has nothing to do with it. Not even an issue here. All right, so go ahead.
If I can just comment on that. In this area, there was a job fair here about 2 weeks ago. In that job fair, they identified over 10,000 open jobs just in this city. Yeah. So, and that's representative of the US as a whole. 3 or 4% means in reality probably more like a -5 or a -10%. If that were possible. The 3 or 4% of the people that don't want to actually work, or there's a reason why they can't work. 3 or 4% means there's no unemployment.
Exactly. That's what I said. Basically, when you have 4% or less, that is full employment. And because you always got at least 1% of the workforce that's in transition, going from one job to another or moving from one location to another. You've got 1% that's incapable of working. You've got 1% that's unwilling to work. So basically 4% or less is full employment. And we have states with, around 2% unemployment. It's someone we were talking the other day where they're at, and then it's 2.7% where they're at. It's just crazy. It's just crazy how low it is. But it's I think that you probably made the right move. But back to the regrets thing here. Let me ask. So Errol, where did you grow up? I mean, what part of the country?
Northwest. Sun City Resort.
Northwest, Pilanesberg, Northwest. Yeah,
in Pilanesberg.
Yeah, that's
my father's farm. We were out there so long ago that the Sun City Resort now emanates this big light, source in that area. When we first moved there back in the early 80s, we had nothing on our farm. There was no electricity or anything like that. And we could see the entrance of Pilani or Sun City Resort, the front gate, and that was the only light on the horizon at that stage. Wow. When I left that area about 25 years later, it was daylight in every direction. It had grown so much since we had originally arrived there.
Well, that's my stomping grounds. I lived in Gaborone, so Zeerost and Rustenburg, Pilanesberg, Brits, the Mahalisberg. That's my neighborhood. So I didn't know you were from there. So let me ask you this question before we wrap up. Did you ever, in your wildest imagination, ever imagine growing up, ever even think remotely that one day you would leave South Africa or be forced to leave South Africa?
No. Look, my brothers went to Canada for about 16 years ago. And I always said, I will stay and I will fight and I will do everything that I need to do. This is my country. This is my home. And then, things happened. Everything escalated to a point where I couldn't see a scenario that I could ensure that my kids had a good life. If it was just my wife and I, or just me, I would have stayed. I would have carried on fighting. I would have done what I needed to do, all of that kind of thing. But I couldn't, in all good conscience, not take the opportunity when it came up. So I never saw that happening. Not until 2025, honestly.
Wow. That's really a sad statement about the conditions and situation in South Africa. And it flies in the face of the nonsense from the flying monkey crowd that's lying about South Africa and pretending that things are all copacetic, because it's simply, sadly, not copacetic. But I do have to ask you, the razor wire and the cameras and the security guards that you have to hire, I mean, is that an added burden for you to have all that around your property or your location there in Alabama? I mean,
it's terrible, Chris. I mean, the cost of putting all of that in place was astronomical. It's quite frustrating. So I'm going to actually cheat a little bit, and so I mean that's it. I cannot handle the traffic and the smoke and all the stuff that comes with this.
Where's the wall? I don't see any security guards. I don't see any concertina wire.
Sorry, just give me a second while I unlock the security gate so I can go outside. So
your gate's stuck. I can't get in.
So,
oh my
Chris,
goodness!
Before I leave you, I just want to make a comment on money.
Yeah.
Just something for people just to have in the back of their mind. So first of all, you can live a good life here on about $3,000, maybe a little bit more, but that's a good number. But the most important thing is you don't have any concept of how little value the South African rand has in comparison to here, where somebody goes, oh, it's just R5, and you disregard it. It's almost like it doesn't exist. It has so little value. $5 is a substantial amount of money. You can buy a whole meal comfortably with $5 and not be getting a crappy meal, and you're getting something decent. So, when we joke around and you go, oh, it's only $100. $100 is a lot of money here. You just can't rationalize that bigger shift from R100 to $100.
No, I thought there's something coming there. Look at you adjusting. Yeah, no, it's and people, and Errol, here's advice I have people, and tell me if you think it's good advice, because now you've been on both sides. People in South Africa who are thinking about coming over here need to divorce their mind from translating rand to dollar. It's not the same. And from the standpoint that you are not going to be compensated at the rand level for your labor in the U.S. You're going to be compensated at a level in the U.S. that's commensurate with what you're doing, the field that you're in, and in most cases, it's going to be enough to live off of. You can't go, well, gosh, this much rand. I think people need to divorce themselves from translating the cost of things in South Africa to what the cost of the U.S. Because yes, things are more expensive, but the per capita income is $70,000 per person here, not $2,800. Well, it's $6,000 in South Africa, but $6,000 versus $70,000. It's 1/10 in South Africa, the per capita income, to what is in the U.S. So you got to divorce yourself from that. Is that good advice?
Absolutely. You cannot. You've got to work in the currency that you're living in. You can't convert, because if you do, you'd freak yourself out every time you buy something. So I'll give a good example for those who like the energy drinks. Monster in South Africa, you can buy 2 for $18. So basically $1 for $1 for 2 of them. Yeah, if you buy it at the wrong place, it's $5 for a Monster.
Yeah.
So, if you go and convert that, you'd freak yourself out because you're constantly penny pinching and stuff. But if you look at it, what you're earning, I mean, an entry level salary, you're earning 60, 70, maybe 80,000 Rand a month. If you had to base it against that, what's the $5 for the Monsters kind of number? So you can't translate it. You have to work in the currency that you're earning.
Well, and also you've got to understand that just because something's expensive, it doesn't mean that's always the true cost or what it costs. This, if I went to a convenience store at a petrol station, is going to cost me $3.79 in the store or more for one of these. This is outrageous. I'm not paying that. But if I go to a discount warehouse like Costco and buy a case of these with 15 in it, then I'm going to be paying $1.25 per bottle. Roughly. So, your dollar can stretch different ways. So be careful. If you join one of the discount clubs like Costco or BJ's or Sam's Club, the petrol is discounted. It's much cheaper than going to the filling station, the gasoline station, much cheaper. So you just have to be a prudent shopper too. Things can be expensive, but if you're smart about how you shop, you can make your money go a lot further. And I'm frugal. I think that's the right word. I'm frugal. I don't like to pay retail for anything. So, Errol, I think you've got to get going here shortly, and I want to overstay. You've been very kind with your time, and we gave you a lot of time to get adjusted. I'm glad we gave you more time to get adjusted because it looks like things are going very well for you and your family. And I want to say welcome to America. Thanks for joining our team. And there's a question that came earlier, and I just want to ask you this one, your thoughts. It's pretty early, and maybe it's unfair to ask it, but someone asked a question about whether, you're citizens. No, they're not citizens. They're South African citizens entitled to all the rights and benefits of being a citizen in South Africa. But they have permanent residence, well, not permanent residence, but they have residency here as a refugee, and he's going to have to apply for permanent residency within the prescribed time that first year. But refugees are given one nice advantage that immigrants don't get here, legal immigrants, and that's that you get to get in the queue faster to become a citizen. After 5 years, if you've obeyed the laws of the country as a refugee, you can apply for citizenship. Do you think you might be interested in becoming an American citizen down the road?
Yes, very much so. So just to on the back of what you said there, the way it's been explained to us, we've got exactly 1 year anniversary of our arrival. We have to apply for permanent residency, and then that permanent residency is 5 years to get into citizenship. So it's a 6-year process.
I'm sorry. Someone says they want to come fill their form, but they were told they can only fill in his pension form. JJ Erasmus, I don't know what you're talking about. Pension has nothing to do with refugee status. I don't know what that is. You're going to have to send me a note or talk in the next broadcast. Sorry about that, Errol. I just jumped over here. I saw 55. I'm like, what's that for? Yeah, so, all right. Well, that's interesting. So, I mean, we're a ways from that 5-year point, but it sounds like you're inclined to join the team. If and when that does happen, I'll be happy to welcome you to the team when you raise your right hand and agree to support and defend the Constitution. That'll be a pretty exciting day. I know a lot of people who become naturalized Americans, it's one of the proudest days of their life. They look forward to it so much, and they become the most patriotic of Americans. It's truly rewarding to see people. And every year we naturalize 750,000 to 900,000 people per year. That's more than double the rest of the world combined. It's a pretty amazing experience. And well, welcome to America. Thanks for coming over, and I'm glad that you guys got here safely, and I'm glad that you're able to swap your FEMA tent pretty quickly.
Chris, thank you so much for everything you've done and inviting me to have the discussion with you today. Not just for myself, but my entire family. We appreciate what you've done, and if there's any way we can give back when we're able to, we'll do exactly that.
Well, it's very kind of you. Thank you. Best wishes to you and the family, and get out there and make some money.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Cheers.
Have a great day.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Likewise. All right. I'll let Errol drop off, then we'll wrap up the chat here. We've got a live newscast coming up in just a few minutes at the top of the hour. So my thanks to my guest, Errol Lanngton, for coming on. I hope you found this informative and useful. That's the intent of these. I know that we didn't answer a few questions. We got to as many as we could there. But we do the refugee session every Sunday now. So tune in on Sunday, and you'll be able to ask all your crazy refugee questions and all your legitimate, serious ones as well. And that's every Sunday at 8 p.m. South Africa time, 2 Eastern Standard Time. Thanks to everyone who's been here. Make sure you hit the like button. There's 1,700 people here right now and just 951 likes. You guys can do better than that. Hit that like button. Errol took his time.
That was easy.
He's got to go to work, and this is my third broadcast of the day, 4 technically, because the first one got stopped because I lost power this morning. It's like living in South Africa. It's like Eskom has taken over my power grid. But thank you guys so much. Be sure to hit that like button. We're almost at 1,000 now, and we'll catch you all here shortly. You'll be redirected to the news program. Let me just double check on that. I want to make sure so I don't mislead you. So the news, let's see. So we are... Come on, why does it say upcoming? I'm in the middle of this broadcast. It shouldn't be upcoming. It should say live. There we go, live. YouTube is so messed up sometimes. All right, you'll be redirected to the news. That'll be at the top of the hour, so you can take a stretch break, get your legs loose, limber it up there, go to the loo, whatever you got to do, and we'll be back in a few minutes with the news. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, everybody, for tuning in and for hitting the like button. We just went over 1,000 likes, but there's still 1,600 of you here. Hit the like button, folks. And we did get a super chat early on. I missed that, so let me go back and cover that. There was one super chat, it looks like. And let me just make sure I don't want to miss that super chat. It was Alan. I did see that earlier. Alan says, does the matric translate to anything in the U.S.? Yeah, it's basically a high school graduate. It does translate. There's Para Ruan. You didn't ask him the most important question. How much do the U.S. public tip him when he watches their cars? Well, I think it's a new experience for most Americans. We're not accustomed to car guards, so they don't know how to address it. So, all right, guys, we'll see you in a couple minutes. Cheers on the news. Bye-bye.